The resistance just came from, I think, this skeptical version of me that didn't really believe there was anything beyond success. And that's partly why I called the book Think Like a Monk, because I think a lot of people look at that and like, why would I want to think like a monk? Like, why, you know, but that's the point. Like, I'm trying to break through that barrier of, I think so many of us have been conditioned to believe that success looks a certain way, and that happiness looks a certain way, and that joy looks a certain way. And I was one of those people that was very skeptical about anything else outside of my space. Like if someone wasn't pulling up in their fast car, or if someone wasn't pulling up in the best clothes, did I give them the time to really share their perspective? And I love the fact that the best moment of my life, that moment, up till that point, was also the most humiliating moment of my life for myself. Because I was being humiliated to myself. Like, it was so humbling to walk out in there and be like, you had it all wrong. And so I love that. I really celebrate the humbling that moment gave me. And it's exactly that when you hear someone speak and they speak about things that you never knew you were interested in. You never thought that you'd be fascinated by someone talking about service, but when he spoke about service, it just penetrated my soul, and it just spoke so deep to my core in a way that nothing ever has. That I could hear about someone talking about making $1 billion and it wouldn't feel the same way.
What was it that he said specifically?
He was quoting another writer, and he mentioned this phrase. He said, "Plant trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit." He said that the best use of your talents and skills is not to use it to become rich, famous, and successful, but to use it in the service of others. When he said that, I was like, wow, like that's a pretty bold statement. Like, you know.
Well, you could have easily had the alternative reaction of like, fuck that.
Yeah, and I think for me it was, you know, it was partly my openness just came because, and I've said this before, but I'll repeat it because it really hit me. It's like when I was 18, I'd met people who were beautiful. I'd met people who were rich. I'd met people who were strong. I'd met people who were powerful. But I don't think I'd ever met anyone who was truly happy. And he looked, and I still know him. He's really happy.
What's his name?
Gauranga Das. So he's just like this big, joyful, like anytime I spend time with him, and he has a crazy schedule, like the way he lives and how powerfully, like he went to IIT, he went to the Indian Institute of Technology. He's super smart, like one of the smartest people in his year, like very accomplished. And he gave it all up. And I was like, either he's really smart or he's really crazy.
Right.
And I wanted to find out. And I think that's all I had, is that I was like, he must be onto something, because if he had it all lined up, but he gave it up and he's really happy, what is it, right? Like that's kind of where the curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds more like confusion. Like, I don't understand. You know, I need to square this equation.
Yeah. Partly confusion, but partly also curiosity, in the sense of just like, he must be really smart, or he must be really crazy. Like, if he's smart, he's onto something. Like, how did he gain so much joy, satisfaction, and contentment in not chasing the dream that everyone around him was chasing?
And that society is constantly sort of pushing us towards.
Absolutely. And I was fascinated by that.
What was his, he's still alive, right?
Yeah, he's still alive. He's young, yeah.
What's his particular genus of, spirituality? Like what tradition?
So he's a Hindu monk. He's a Hindu monk, and he's what I would consider, in the book I break down and Think Like a Monk, I break down dharma and purpose and calling. So he would probably sit under the leader type of individual. He's very ambitious, very focused. He can get a lot done. He's a powerhouse to be around. At the same time, he wakes up at 2 a.m. to meditate every day, takes care of his health. He's one of these like all-rounder types of people who's just, really good at taking care of his mind, body, and spirit. But at the same time, he really wants to do something for the world. He has that energy. There
is something about certain individuals, I'm reluctant to say the word enlightened, but people who are carrying a higher level of consciousness, that when you're in their presence, it's undeniable. Like you can't reduce it to words, but there is a sensation of what it feels like to be in that person's presence.
100%. And he introduced me to his spiritual teacher, who's also one of my spiritual teachers, Radhanath Swami, who's been a monk for 40 years now. And so he's
in England or back in India?
In India, and he's older as well. And it's like, I feel like that when I'm with him every time. Like it's just, it's that undeniable presence. And I always say to people, you need to feel it to believe it. Like you need to be there. You can't, like you said, you can't reduce it to words. And I feel that now even when I go to temples, when I was in South India particularly, and your home reminds me a lot of South India because there's a lot of these stone statues.
Well, the mountain out there, we had some proper Swami here. We've had lots of Swamis pass through here over the years.
Yeah.
And one of them looked out at the mountain across the way and he said, "This feels like my home." And his home was Arunachala. Arunachala.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a very kind of like powerful spiritual vortex.
Absolutely, and vortex is the right word. So when I went to South India, it's a city with these powerful gates. So if you look at South Indian architecture, it's like these, you've got a lot of it in your home, but it's like this incredible kind of like, almost like Avengers Marvel meets spiritual culture, kind of like spaceship, kind of these doors and gates. And it's, it's the temples that are like 5,000 years old. And when you walk through those corridors, there's one that literally feels like you're going to walk through it and be transported to another dimension because the way the pillars are built, and this was built thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it's like Star Trek.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, exactly. It's just, super, what's a more up-to-date reference point? Kind of like Doctor Strange. Like it's like Doctor Strange, but on steroids. Like it's just, it's expansive. And I think that is one of those things that you have to sit in that presence. You have to go there to believe it. And I think anyone who has, whether they have a faith or not, and that's really what's important to me is, how do we share these teachings in a way that it's not bound by faith or religion or spiritual tradition? Even for me, like this book isn't about becoming a spiritual tradition or a particular philosophy. It's about living like you and thinking like a monk, right? Like that's the balance.
Yeah, I mean, two things. There's two powerful precepts here. One is you can't transmit something you haven't got. Like when you're in the presence of somebody like that, you know it. And, there are a lot of pretenders to that type of vibration, but it's pretty transparent. Like who's really carrying that kind of wisdom and who's pretending to. And second to that is this idea that you really fully embrace, which is meeting people where they're at. Like if you show up in robes and you're framing your presentation in a way that creates a distance between you and the person you're trying to communicate, then you're already, basically behind home plate in terms of like trying to connect or transmit. Something.
And there's two things you brought about there, which I think are really interesting. The first is, it's all about the frequency you're operating at. So if someone is fooling you or pretending or trying to be something, if you're operating at a lower frequency, you may follow for a while and you may not know. But when you start upping your frequency, that's when you can really see that, oh, right, now I can see the difference. And it's not in a judgmental way or a critical way, it's just frequencies. And the second point you're making there around, really speaking to people about where they're at or meeting them where they're at and connecting with them. For me, it's just, I think compassion is not expecting people to be more advanced than they are. And that's what people have done with me. I mean, when I went to the ashram and when I spent time with these monks, I mean, I am in no way, and even now I'm not. I mean, they're compassionate even to spend time with me now. And I feel like when you've experienced that level of compassion where people see you, they look through your soul, they watch you and they just think, they can see everything about you that you don't like about yourself. And they will still find that spark of potential and the spark that makes them believe that we should invest and serve and help this human being. And for me, when you've experienced that level of compassion, even if you are still dealing with stuff yourself, you want to pass it on. And so when I see anyone at any level, I don't judge anyone because, hey, I've been there before. Hey, I'm still there, kind of, in some ways. And I know how hard it is to get out of that mess. And so how can I judge someone just because they're 3 steps behind?
Yeah.
If you want even more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe and click on the boxes over here. I'm also excited to let you know that you can now get my book, Think Like a Monk, from thinklikeamonkbook.com. Check below in the description to make sure you order today.